So Superman was my most anticipated movie of the year for numerous reasons. For one, even though I am a Zack Snyder fan, and no, I'm not a Snyder cultist, I have moved on, I was eager to see what James Gunn was going to do with this new DC universe moving forward, since he seemed to have an actual plan, unlike the old regime, and I don't know, I was happy to see Superman be prioritized for once again. And I've been really annoyed by this whole back and forth between the Snyder cultists who are acting like this is the worst movie ever, even though they haven't even seen it, and the Gunn defenders acting like anyone who criticizes this movie isn't a real DC fan. I have no interest in a culture war. I just wanted to see a decent Superman movie. Did I get that? Well, I have a lot to say, and I feel like the best way to do so is to break it down into sections. So let's start with...
Hey buddy, eyes up here.
The film opens up with text cluing us in that this is a very well-established universe and that Superman has been a known hero in said universe for at least 3 years. There's a bunch of other threes in there, and it gets really annoying because it starts out with like 3 centuries ago, metahumans showed up, and then 3 decades ago, Krypton blew up. 3 years ago, 3 days ago, 3 hours ago, 3 minutes ago. It's just like, okay, you're kind of dragging this on a little bit. So we're told at the beginning that Superman intervened to stop a war between 2 warring nations who definitely aren't Israel and Palestine. You know what would have been really cool? Actually seeing him do that. So much of this film is telling and not showing, and that's agonizing. The editing too is also just horribly done with constant cuts left and right, barely any pauses between sentences to the point where the film moves way too fast. And around the 30-minute mark, I vividly remember thinking, slow down, let the film breathe. As for Superman himself, David Corenswet, I mean, he at least looks the part. If we couldn't have Henry Cavill come back again, I'm glad that we have David Corenswet. He's a decent actor from what I've seen. The big question everyone wants to know though, is he better than Henry Cavill? I don't know. His Superman for the most part is solid, but his dialogue is littered with James Gunnisms that I just really don't care for. You may have already seen the infamous "Where's the Dog" Luthor clip that had been making its rounds on the internet well before the release of this film, and...
Coffee. Where's the dog?
Dog?
The dog, Luthor! You took the dog! Where's the dog?
I don't care for the shouting aspect of his performance at all. He is yelling like that at various points throughout the entire film.
People were going to die!
We have one scene with him as Clark Kent. One. And man, do I wish he had a little bit more of a distinct performance when he was playing that persona, because Clark and Superman in this film feel very homogenous. And this was a criticism I had for Henry Cavill's Superman. Even though I enjoy those movies and I really like him as Superman, he is so very similar when he's Clark as when he's Superman that it kind of makes you wonder how anyone hasn't figured it out yet. Because when you watch Christopher Reeve's Superman and compare that to Cavill and Corenswet, he transforms between Superman and Clark Kent. He is playing 2 distinct people, which is what Superman has to do to protect his identity, you know. And to see them not really differentiate here that much at all between the personas, it makes it hard to believe that. Christopher Reeve truly understood the character and in my opinion is the best Superman we've ever had in live action. And I also just didn't like how the entire film, start to finish, Superman just keeps getting pummeled. The first thing we see this new Superman do is plummet out of the sky, beaten, bloodied, and broken. And from that point on, he hardly has any moments of triumph. I would have expected a year 3 Superman to have a little bit more control over some of these situations and not get absolutely wrecked constantly. I will admit, I did love all the moments of him saving people. This shot of him saving this little girl is easily my favorite frame in the entire film. Something else I was thinking about after my most recent viewing was this whole punk rock angle they went with. By the way, I'm recording this while editing, hence no footage, but at the time of shooting this video, I had only seen the film once, and at the time of editing, I have seen it 3 times. In one scene, Lois says that she was just some punk rock kid from, I think she says Bayport or something, and he's Superman, so she was concerned that she could never measure up in their relationship. And Clark says that he's punk rock, but Lois is like, no, you're not. And he's like, I listen to POD and the Mighty Crabjoys. And then Lois is just like, those are pop radio bands and the Mighty Crabjoys suck. Mighty Crabjoys, by the way, are a made-up band that only exists in the DCU and were first referenced in Creature Commandos. But I think the takeaway from this scene is how the world views Superman based on what he is. Superman is the embodiment of traditionalism, American idealism done right, good upstanding moral values, truth, justice, and the American way. And Lois is basically saying because of that, he could never truly be a countercultural person. But considering where the world is now and how it is more popular to be against the system, against traditionalism, Clark says that maybe he's the real punk rock because having that viewpoint has gone from being the status quo to being a beacon of hope for people who need it. And I think this is the best form of commentary James Gunn offers in his writing on the character, despite my initial misunderstanding thinking that Superman wanting to be punk rock was a self-insert for James Gunn himself and a moment to just gush about his favorite bands or something. It makes the ending with the song Punk Rocker by Teddy Bears and Iggy Pop make way more sense. Plus, that's a great song. I don't know, something I just thought about. Also, last thing, I didn't mind the suit overall. I wish it wasn't quite so over-designed with all the lines running through it and everything, and it's pretty baggy in certain scenes. And I don't know, this dude put in a lot of work to become Superman physically. I feel like you could have just showcased that a little bit better with this suit. Also, I really don't understand the creative choice behind picking the Kingdom Come logo for the mainstream Superman suit, but okay.
I'm a fortress!
So the Fortress of Solitude looks freaking great. I love how comic accurate it looks, and I also really appreciate that Superman is using this as like a base of operations, essentially. Superman's robots, though, are of course all voiced by James Gunn's friends and not actual voice actors. Well, at least if you don't count Alan Tudyk, I guess. But did you really need two of them to be played by Pom Clementine and Michael Rooker? I love Michael Rooker, but he alone has already played 3 different characters in James Gunn DC projects. It would be one thing if Gunn was kind of pulling a Sam Raimi where, you know, you have one recurring actor in all of your projects. In Sam Raimi's case, it's Bruce Campbell. But the fact that every time you see a James Gunn film, it comes with this kind of mandatory roster of smaller actors included throughout, it gets kind of annoying. Like, there are so many other actors out there who are struggling in their career and could use those smaller spots just to give them some kind of leg up in the industry, and James Gunn keeps filling those spots with his buddies and his family and his wife. So in The Fortress, we see this message that Clark's parents, Jor-El and Lara, sent with him in the ship that took him down to Earth when he was a baby, and he said that he replays it quite often just because it's kind of, you know, like a soothing thing, and it reminds him of what he came from and all that. Now in the message, Jor-El and Lara are speaking in a different language, and I did think this was interesting because I had never really considered before that, yeah, Kryptonians likely wouldn't ever be speaking American English like we do. They would probably have their own language on this, you know, far-off alien planet. So it was like a unique little flavor that they added to it, but at the same time, I don't really know if it was all that necessary. But this message that I'm talking about does play a pretty big part in the movie, and I'm gonna get into spoilers really briefly, so if you don't want to know anything about what I'm about to say, I suggest skipping ahead in the video to the time code that appears on your screen right now. Elephant in the room. Yes, Bradley Cooper does play Jor-El in this film, and yet again, James Gunn hires one of his friends to play a small role in his film. Great. But Clark only had the first half of this message because apparently the second half of it got corrupted in the flight when they landed, and he was never able to know what all his parents said. Eventually, Lex breaks into the Fortress of Solitude, and he allows the engineer to hack into the database or whatever, and she's able to decrypt the actual second half of that message, and then Lex broadcasts it to the news worldwide. It turns out, in that second half of the message, Jor-El and Lara instructed Clark to become a new dominant force over the people of Earth, creating a new Kryptonian empire and taking many wives. This is straight up Viltrumite stuff, and I have 2 problems with this. 1, why is Superman so quick to believe this? When this is broadcast on the news, it is coming directly from the source of Lex Luthor of all people, so why would he believe that Luthor didn't do anything to fabricate it outside of people just insisting that, yes, this is legit? Also, how are we certain that Luthor properly translated the Kryptonian dialect correctly? If they were speaking normal American English, like all the other Jor-Els have in the past, it would have been, you know, a pretty clear cut, but then you could also make the argument like, okay, maybe this was an AI deepfake or something like that. But no. Second, if this is actually what they said to Kal-El, What the heck, James Gunn? Like, since when did Kryptonians become Viltrumites? This is straight up what Omni-Man wanted Mark to do in Invincible. And now we're just gonna deconstruct Jor-El and Lara, despite the fact that Jor-El has always been a moral compass for Superman in the previous other movies. Seriously, this Jor-El's motivations align so much more with General Zod's that it would blow my mind if these two were ever at odds with each other. Like, the stuff that Jor-El is talking about in this video is exactly the manifesto that General Zod would have when he's staging his coup and trying to take over the planet of Krypton. Okay, crazy theory. What if this isn't really Jor-El and Lara, and instead it's Zod and Ursa or Feora or whatever female counterpart they'll use in the DCU for Zod? What if Zod somehow tampered with the message sent with Kal-El to Earth, or Jor-El and Lara never recorded one, but Zod did to fool Superman once he came to Earth? What if all of this is a misdirect and is intended to be a twist reveal in the sequel? I mean, it would be better justification for casting Bradley Cooper than just because he's friends with James Gunn, but then again, I don't know how well he can pull off Zod. I don't know, maybe this is actually Jor-El, but still, Zod could have manipulated the footage. Either way, that's all speculation, and as of now, Jor-El and Lara are the bad guys, and I don't like that. At least when the Batman 2022 flung some mud at the legacy of Thomas Wayne, this was a crisis of faith moment for Bruce, and then Alfred set the record straight by the end. But in this film,
You're a miracle. Your stories have none of that.
anyway, they clearly do this to show that Clark doesn't need his Kryptonian parents because he's got his ma and Pa Kent back in Kansas. But it's stupid because James Gunn is basically just recycling the whole
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
thing he had in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The problem here is that Star-Lord's dad was an actual supervillain, except for in the comics where it wasn't Ego, it was Jason, which is why his middle name is Jason, not named after his grandpa. Whatever, I'm getting off track. And Superman's dad was trying to save the planet from destruction while also trying to stop Zod from staging an insurrection. But no, let's all laugh at how funny Ma Kent sounds when she's talking on the phone with her southern Kansas drawl.
I cleaned your boots. I'll go get them for you.
Pa Kent was cool though. He had some pretty good emotional moments with Clark, and I wish we had a little bit more time spent with him.
Don't call me Chief.
These are the side characters I wish got more of a focus in the film, but didn't. First and foremost, Rachel Brosnahan is perfection as Lois Lane. Her chemistry with David Corenswet is top tier, and I'm not even kidding when I say she might just be my favorite live-action depiction of the character. Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen was really good casting too, but I really wish that we could have gotten more of the dynamic he has with Superman in the comics, where he's Superman's pal, because I feel that that was always lacking in every other iteration of the character, including the Christopher Reeve films. Instead, he's buddies with Clark Kent at the Daily Planet, which is cool, but still, I kind of prefer the whole Captain America and Bucky relationship that they had. Well, early Captain America and Bucky, not the MCU. By the way, did you know that Bucky used to be a teenager? Wendell Pierce's Perry White was enjoyable, but not nearly as memorable as Lawrence Fishburne. Personally, I think Bob Odenkirk would have been a perfect Perry White, but considering how little he's featured in this actual film, I'm okay with them not casting him, simply because I wouldn't want them to waste his talent like that. And honestly, the rest of the Daily Planet people feel really underutilized and only included because James Gunn wanted them. Beck Bennett as Steve Lombard is pointless comic relief that could have been removed from the film entirely, and Michaela Hoover is only playing Cat Grant because she and James Gunn go way back to when he was making his raunchy short films.
We are also of the cloth.
First of all, I hate that name. And I understand that that was the joke. It was like, oh yeah, the Justice Gang, oh, that name sucks. Yeah, I understand that, but I'm getting kind of sick of that trope in comic book movies. This comic book name sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, that's exactly what they did in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and we all remember how that went.
A mechanized organism designed only for kill.
MODOK. Oh, I get it. It's an acronym. It's an acronym. Actually, that's MODOK.
Nathan Fillion, once again got the job because he's James Gunn's buddy, is actually perfect as Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner is a jerk in just about every medium he's ever been adapted into, and that's pretty consistent for his character throughout time. First time I ever saw this character was in Batman Brave and the Bold, a long time ago when I was a kid on Cartoon Network, and I'm just so happy to see Nathan Fillion just slip into this role with ease. Mr. Terrific is a standout for sure. He's definitely one of the most popular side characters from people who've seen the film, but at the same time, even though he's given a lot of cool moments, we don't really learn a whole lot about him as a person, and the same can be said for many of the side characters in this film overall. For example, Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl. She's here, she's got a helmet and a mace and wings, and she looks like the character from the comics. Why is she here?
I'm a bird.
I mean, okay, think about it. They needed at least 3 people to be considered a team on the Justice Gang, and they probably wanted a female superhero to be in the film, so here she is, but She really has nothing of substance to do. Metamorpho is also a character that I first discovered through Batman Brave and the Bold, and is a character that I've enjoyed for a very long time over the mediums that he's appeared in. And the way he's written in this film, it definitely feels like the most James Gunn type character of all of them. Trying to capture emotion in this creepy looking dude, but then also using him as comedic relief at the most awkward of times. In general, the comedy is really out of place in this film, and I honestly hate it. So this Justice Gang is headed up by Maxwell Lord, who only appears once briefly in the film outside of a couple of name drops. And guess who, of all people in the world of Hollywood, in the industry, is playing this character? James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn. Keep in mind, James Gunn has cast his brother in 4 roles now in his DC projects alone. While these are very small roles, think of all the other actors that could have used this opportunity to jumpstart or get going with their career. Okay, maybe it's a preference thing, but I've never cared for the whole Luthor Corp name. I've always preferred Lex Corp. First time I heard Luthor Corp was in Supergirl. Up until that point, I always thought it was just consistently Lex Corp, and I remember thinking it sounded weird. It didn't roll off the tongue as nicely as Lex Corp, and I don't know, maybe I'm just ignorant to something in the comics where it is Luthor Corp originally or whatever, because James Gunn's been pulling a lot of deep cuts in certain things that he's been doing in this movie, so I could be ignorant, but I just have always preferred Lex Corp. Nicholas Hoult is good as Lex Luthor, but wasn't exactly utilized in a way that I loved. Everyone clowned on Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg Luthor. Well, Nicholas Hoult is Redditor Luthor. Lex Luthor in this film has a burning hatred for Superman and just loses himself so frequently. Personally, I think the best Lex Luthor is Clancy Brown's version from the DC animated universe, where he was a calm, cool, collected businessman with a genius-level intellect that challenged Superman and still had that evil side, but it was far more subdued and nowhere near as, triggered as Nicholas Holt's version was. This Lex is ordering around a control room full of people, sound familiar, to do his bidding and is shouting out commands like Mortal Kombat inputs to control none other than Ultraman. More on him in a second. Lex even has an army of monkeys that he controls that post rage bait about Superman online. Gee, James Gunn, is that a reference to something? Lex also casually mentions that he was able to create a pocket dimension by recreating the Big Bang. Are we just not going to get any further explanation on that? That gets about as much explanation as Lex Luthor managing to get his own kaiju just randomly to drop in the middle of Metropolis and fight Superman. Lex's main goal is obviously to take down Superman and ruin his public perception, which is pretty on brand for the character, and so he's collaborating with a lot of representatives from the government, and wouldn't you know, one of them is none other than Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. from Creature Commandos, because why not just cram another character into this movie? And with that, Lex was also able to make his own military task force, in a sense, called Planet Watch, that is partnering with people using his own technology as well as metahumans. One of the metahumans working for Lex is none other than the Engineer. If you have no idea who that character is, it's because she comes from a comic called The Authority, written by Warren Ellis, and it is a team that James Gunn is hell-bent on making happen in the DCU. And I don't know what this adaptation of her is supposed to be, because she's very much a villain working for Lex in this movie, and I've read the first book of The Authority, so maybe there's something in the second book that changes things, but from what I can tell, she's not a villain. She's a hero. One of the main characters in this team, as a matter of fact. But the big muscle working with her is the aforementioned Ultraman. No, not the one from Crisis on Two Earths. This is basically just like Lex Luthor's own version of Black Noir from The Boys. And the big question revolving around his character in this film is, who is under that mask? Well, I'll dive into spoilers in a second, but let me just say that this is essentially the Taskmaster of the DCU. If you want to completely bypass the spoilers and not hear anything or have the movie ruined for you, just skip ahead to the time code in this video that appears on your screen right now. Ultraman's identity was really underwhelming. Having him just be a clone of Superman was really stupid, especially considering there was nothing in the film to ever insinuate that Lex was ever working on cloning technology, and then suddenly he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I picked up one of your hairs once and I was able to clone you from that, and so now I have a clone working for me. Yeah. That's the explanation I'm giving you. And this comes immediately after the mask comes off and we find out who he is. It's like there was nothing building that up at all. It was just so like pulling it out of thin air, like, yep, There you go. Take that. So we're just going to totally cheapen the adaptation of Ultraman from the comics, who's actually a really interesting character with the crime syndicate, and completely ignore the concept of using someone like Bizarro or Superboy, who would have fit this really well and a lot better because Superboy is literally a clone of Superman made by Lex Luthor in the comics. This was just dumb and amounted to nothing because by the end of it, he just gets sucked into a black hole and we'll never see him again.
You have a dog?
For the first time in my life, I actually hated a dog in a movie. Initially, I was excited when I heard that they were including Krypto in the film, but the fact that he's nothing more than just a terribly behaved dog is really annoying to me. Haha, the dog is hurting Superman. Haha, the dog destroyed the Fortress of Solitude. Haha, the dog keeps eating expensive things that he's not supposed to. Smell that? Smells like merchandise. But the worst part is the fact that Krypto is a self-insert for James Gunn's dog because for whatever reason, this dog wouldn't leave him alone while he was writing the script and kept destroying stuff and biting him and being a total pain in the butt. So yeah, James Gunn just made Krypto his dog, his really badly behaved dog. And that's why the model of Krypto in this movie, the CG model of Krypto, looks like James Gunn's dog instead of a Labrador Retriever as Krypto is more commonly depicted in the comics. 3 years ago, The Rock voiced Krypto the Super Dog in DC's Super Pets, and somehow that was better than what we got in this film. I can't believe I just said that. But we actually find out something about Krypto at the end of the movie. Once again, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, skip to this time code in the video and you'll bypass all of them. So it turns out that Krypto is Supergirl's dog, not Superman's. And this isn't actually a surprise because I think they broke that news in the media a month ago or so. So I wasn't really shocked about that. And I figured when that report came out that would mean, you know, Supergirl would be making a cameo in the movie. And sure enough, she does at the very end. Millie Alcock walks out and she shows up in the Fortress of Solitude at the very end of the movie. And how do they introduce Supergirl in this film? By drunkenly stumbling into the fortress, getting pounced on and pounded into the ground by Krypto, and then leaving, calling Superman a bitch. James Gunn, this is how you introduce Supergirl, as a drunken party chick. Really? This is supposed to sell me on her and get me hyped for her movie next year. Dude.
Oh, good for you!
Hiring the same DP who worked on The Flash for this film was a mistake, and I'm guessing the main reason that happened is because the same DP who did The Flash and this film also worked on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and The Suicide Squad with James Gunn. The film has some cool shots, but then others just look terrible. Any shot of Superman flying from a distance is really cool, but all these weird close-up shots with the wide-angle lens just look wrong. And there's not enough visual flair in this film to make it stand out amongst a bunch of other superhero movies that are coming out. It kind of blends in with a lot of them and doesn't really stand out like something like Zack Snyder's movies would. And again, I'm not trying to just glaze Zack Snyder or anything or act like he is the greatest filmmaker ever, because he's not. He's flawed, sure, but you can't deny the guy has an incredible visual style. John Murphy does the score and it's okay, but I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more unique. It just felt like the whole time they were just ripping off John Williams' score from the original Christopher Reeve film. Like when Hans Zimmer did the score for Man of Steel, those tracks felt powerful. Flight by Hans Zimmer is just such an incredible piece of music. You feel how strong and fast Superman is through the music. And Christopher Reeve, those movies, they are iconic, of course, but Hans Zimmer was able to find a way to make something truly special and unique. And every time a new Batman movie comes out, the score is always different and basically helps define every iteration, because the Adam West Batman theme is nowhere near the same as the 89 Batman or even the Dark Knight or even as recently as the Batman from 2022. But here it feels like John Murphy's doing a cover album, and that's honestly kind of lame.
Well, we're waiting.
Overall, I wanted to love this film, but I just didn't. It's fast-paced, undercooked, overstuffed, but there is some fun action. I enjoyed the cast, and I did think for the most part it was an entertaining time. I know I bashed this pretty hard with my criticisms earlier, but I do think that I enjoyed the majority of the film more so than the stuff that I didn't enjoy. Is this the Superman movie I was hoping for? No, it was far from it. Do I think this is the worst Superman movie ever? No, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace exists. But I really was just hoping that James Gunn would kind of put to bed all of his typical James Gunn isms, all the modern superhero tropes, and turn over a new leaf and show us that he's capable of doing something other than just Guardians of the Galaxy adjacent, because that's essentially what he was doing with this film when he started assembling the Justice Gang and all these other quirky side characters, because I guess Superman just wasn't a big enough focus for his script. Not a great start to the DCU. Well, technically Creature Commandos was the start of the DCU or whatever, but I'm just hoping that this franchise can continue to improve and this doesn't just stay as like James Gunn's toy chest. I hope that other creators are able to bring their voice to these films. Maybe we'll get a second Superman movie. I would hope that a different director helms it other than James Gunn. If he wants to write it, I mean, maybe it'll be fine, but I honestly want someone else to work on it, because while this is probably going to be a financial success, which is good for the franchise, I don't want like just this kind of stuff to be what we're getting with the DC universe moving forward. I want there to be genuinely well-made, well-crafted films, not just cinematic fast food. It's been a long time since we've seen a definitive Superman on screen, and I guess we're not getting that with this film. It's not terrible, but it's just okay. So for a score out of 10, I guess I could give it like a 6. So let me know in the comments whether or not you saw Superman and you loved it, whether you saw it and you hated it, whether you're somewhere in the middle like me, or what you think that the DCU is going to look like in the future moving forward, whether you think that James Gunn was the right person for this job or he should have passed it off to someone else. For some reason, this movie is being politicized and seems really, really divisive online, and I don't want to take part in any of that. So please, if you're going to comment down below, don't be a jerk and go at each other's throats over it. It's just a movie after all, not the most important thing in the world. But if you like this review, then please like this video, subscribe for more videos like this, and hit the bell so you know when I'm uploading. And if you want more stuff from me that isn't YouTube exclusive, you can check out the links in my description. It'll take you to 4 social media platforms where I post tons of reviews on movies, TV shows, and video games that don't always make it onto this channel. And the ones that do make it onto this channel, I post on those platforms long before I edit together a video, so be sure to check that out. And until next time, guys, God be with you, and take care.